Okay, welcome back. Now we're gonna dive into how you actually read the 12 lead ECG or the approach to reading it. Okay, so let's start with an overview. All right, we're gonna break it down. So there are many different approaches. This is my approach, and it's an approach I would recommend. So, one, rate. Two, rhythm. Three, axis. Four, the waves, segments, and intervals. All right. So let's give a few definitions so that we know what we're talking about, right? So the ECG rate is the number of heartbeats per minute, which is the same as the number of cardiac cycles per minute, which is the same thing as the number of QRS complexes per minute. Right? So that's the rate. What about the rhythm? Okay, so this is something I want to clarify at this point, right? Rhythm. There's a misconception or a misunderstanding among some persons that are new to ECG interpretation, that the rhythm speaks about whether or not the QRS complexes are occurring at regular intervals. So, for example, when asked to describe the rhythm, or when asked what is the rhythm, a response may be, oh, the rhythm is regular or the rhythm is irregular. So I want to clarify that while the regularity of the rhythm is a part of the analysis, that is not what the rhythm is. So this is basically what the rhythm is, right? The ECG rhythm is a diagnosis, right, based on analysis of the presence or absence of P waves and QRS complexes, their relation to each other, and the heart rate. Okay, so again, it's a diagnosis, right? It's based on what the P waves are doing, what the QRS complexes are doing in relation to each other, and it takes into context the heart rate. So when someone asks, what the rhythm is, based on your analysis of all of these factors, you're supposed to come to a conclusion. So it's not, oh, the rhythm is regular or irregular. It's, okay, the rhythm is sinus rhythm or it's sinus arrhythmia, so on and so forth. And we'll get more into that later on. So what is the axis? So the axis is the mean it is the direction, of the mean electrical vector of a chamber. So you can have a P wave axis, or you can have a QRS axis, right? or an atrial axis or a ventricular axis, right? But most of the time when we're talking about the axis of the heart, we're making reference to the ventricular depolarization, so the QRS axis, right? So the mean electrical vector can be what's the word? It can be calculated to down to a degree with certain techniques, but typically not with the 12 lead ECG alone, right? So the purpose of the 12 lead ECG as it relates to axis is to ascertain or to analyze whether or not the axis of your patient is within the normal range, right? So you don't need to know the exact value for in most situations, like the vector is 55 degrees or 70 degrees. Most of the time that's not really required. You just need to know if it's between 0 and 90 or 90 and 180, so on and so forth, right? So you just need to know if it's within the normal range or in the range of left axis deviation, right axis deviation, and we'll speak more about that. And we have already given definitions for waves, segments, and intervals, right? So we're not gonna waste time on that again. Okay, moving on.